Welcome back to the Isn't That Rich podcast. We are your hosts, Ashley McVicker
and Jill Franks. And today we're talking with our CEO, Charles Holland.
I'm so excited.
I am too, because I think he has a really interesting story to share. He's been with the bank for over 20 years, and he has held every single position at the bank. And I think he has just a really great journey. So
he's even held our position at one point, right?
I know, marketing.
Which is just hilarious to me.
I'm excited to hear what he has to say. So let's bring him on. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you for being here. I guess we just really want to hear a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your home life, your family,
where you're from,
all that good stuff.
Born and raised in Harrisburg, Illinois. Went to school, graduated in 1996. Went on to SIU, Carbondale, got my accounting degree.
Ooh, so you're a numbers guy.
I am a numbers guy. I didn't know I was going to be a numbers guy. I went to school because I thought you had to. And then I had a teacher introduce me to, it's FBLA, I guess it was Future Business Leaders. And they had this Mr. Future Business Executive course that you could take. And I won the state of Illinois.
You did?
I did. You had to take all these business courses or tests. I hadn't even had a business course yet. Had to do an interview, had to do all sorts of different things. And I won the state. I thought, man, this is kind of fun. So I went to Disney for nationals. This is in college.
This is all FBLA.
Yeah. Well, it's PBL in college, but yeah. Anyway, went to Disney and got fourth in the country. Still didn't have a business degree. Still didn't have anything. Just interview skills and making it my way through the testing. So I thought, man, I like business. So this may be where I should go. So my junior year in college, I met my wife, Amanda, and realized I need to get my act together. So I decided to go into accounting since I like business. And once I got in there, realized numbers are my thing and I enjoy it, and got my accounting degree, and that's how it all kind of started.
Working at the bank when you met Amanda?
I was not. We met in church.
Met in church?
We met in church, yes.
And where were you going to church at the time?
Doorsville Baptist Church in Harrisburg, yeah.
I like the story of how you guys met. Tell me a little bit more about that. You said it was God's divine plan.
It was God's divine plan. I got saved at 18, so basically not doing things that I should be doing, and prayed that I had meet some new friends. And the next morning when I went to school, this is back before the cell phones. You know, we had bag phones, I guess, in the car, and that was about it. But I got home from school, and my mom said, Amanda Franks called. Since she called, she's older than me. I had to make sure I got that in there. But anyway, so I called her back, and she's like, hey, I thought maybe you just needed a friend, someone to hang out with, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, from that point on, we've been best friends.
Didn't you say the night before that you prayed that God would bring new friends into your life, and then the next day that happened?
That's exactly how it happened, yep. Been blessed ever since.
Cool. And you have 3 children?
Will, Graham, and Jack. Will's the oldest, Jack's the youngest at 16, so been an adventure raising 3 boys that are a little crazy. My parents wish that I would have at least one boy just like me, and I got 3, so I am paying for my raising 3 times over.
Another answer to prayer.
That's exactly right. We have a lot of animals. Got 7 dogs and 2 cats and a tortoise and a bunch of quail and maybe a partridge and a pear tree. I don't quite know, but we got lots.
I love it. One time you had squirrels.
We did have squirrels, but yeah, we love animals.
I love it. So you've not always been at Farmers State Bank, right? You started off at in an accountant position, is that right? Or were you always
So while
with
I
Farmers?
was in school, I worked at Kemper as an intern for a couple of years with Joe McCurdy in Marion. Learned a lot from him. Very, very good role model for me. Very good businessman too. And then after that, went into the family business of coal mining and was a cost accountant for our coal mine for a couple of years. And then the coal mine sold in 2002, and I became a banker at that point.
So when you say you became a banker, what position were you in?
I was a teller.
You were a teller.
I was learning everything. Yep. Had a little ego issue with that too. So.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I'd been a cost accountant for a while, been out of school for a while, and came straight at the entry level. But, looking back as a blessing. Tom wanted me to start there, understand everything, and it's just kind of how it all started.
Do you think that makes you a better CEO and leader because you had that position at some point?
Oh, absolutely. You got to know everything.
Well, I feel like as a teller, they know the ins and outs of every customer.
Everything. They know everything.
They know everything. They know our products really well.
They know our people very well.
Mm-hmm. They're the first line, right? So I feel like unless you have that position, you really
I learned a lot about leadership just in that role. And I tell all the new tellers that you learn a lot about yourself dealing with the public on the front line. You know, you're taking care of their money. There are happy customers, there's mad customers, there's confused customers, and you got to be able to deal through all of that. You have to multitask. You got to be able to answer the phone and do the drive-through and someone coming through and coming in the door. So there's a lot. And then, just making sure you balance on top of that.
Yeah.
And working as a team through all that. So I think leadership pops its head up early. You can tell which ones are future leaders that way.
That's great. What are some of so as a teller, you deal with a lot of conflict, and is there anything that you experienced as a teller, like any great stories that you have that just really stick out to you?
I guess growing from as a teller would just be conflict resolution, being able to allow the customer to vent their issue and be able to explain it in a way that, sometimes it's our fault, sometimes it's their fault. They just don't really understand. A lot of people don't understand banking at all. So helping them understand that. But yeah, taking the time, I guess the conflict resolution was the biggest thing I learned through all that. I don't think there's really a story that I can remember because it's been 20 years, but yeah, I would say.
No fraud you ever stopped? That was what our last episode was about. Tellers stopping fraud.
I don't think I ever caught any type of fraud.
Uh-oh.
Maybe I wasn't on my game last time. One thing to go back is my kids and my wife say, Charlie, you have two voices. What are you talking about? And I learned this as a teller too. We could be driving down the road and my kids and I be fighting, and all of a sudden my phone rings and it's a customer, and all of a sudden I'm like, this is Charlie, how can I help you? Instantly to this nicer voice, even though stuff's not going on right. And I think you learn that as a teller too, that would be another thing. Good lesson that I learned, that you always have to have a happy voice when you're answering that phone, regardless of what's going on. For
sure. And a lot of our people that walk into the bank, you might be the only people they speak to all week. And so, whether they come in and they're, they have conflict or there's a problem, sometimes all it takes is that one person at the front line to really hear them. Mm-hmm. They just want to vent their issues and get it off their chest. So.
And that was my CEO address last week. I don't know if you guys listened to it or not, but it was on the story of the waitress that hadn't been seen. She was a bus lady, actually, and we all took the time to get to know her and talk to her and all that. And before we left, she wanted to come out and give us a hug because she realized we were different, because she's worked there for years and no one's ever seen her. So I tell that to our staff that with everything that goes on right now, some people just need that friendly face, friendly conversation, because that may be the only person they get to talk to all day.
So after you were a teller at the bank, or how long were you a teller?
Probably 3 years.
3 years. Mm-hmm. And what was after that? What came after?
Collections came after that.
Collections. That's something I don't have a lot of experience with.
Oh, yeah. That was
very
interesting.
Explain your position. Yeah.
Did you want to go into that, or were you put in that position?
I don't think I ever was put in any position. I think it was just a role that was needed to be done, and I just kind of gravitated to it and doing it.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like,
you're going here.
Tom saying you're going straight into this. So I just kind of gravitated and just did it. But yeah, collections is a different animal. We have a good collections department, but it's difficult calling someone and letting them know that they're past due. And they know they're past due. That's the thing. Most of them know. Sometimes you have mistakes and they don't know it, but calling them and telling they're past due. I do have one great story on collections. I went to a house, knocked on the door, and they let their German Shepherd out the back door. And that German Shepherd was almost as tall as I was, face to face with me, put his paws on me, just going crazy. Most people would have left, but I kept knocking on the door.
No.
So it can get hairy in collections.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Would be enough to send me out.
That wasn't, I probably did that a year or two as I was was basically a good learning for being a lender. If you're collecting, you know what not to do. But people, you know, we have to, as lenders, and we try to remind them all that sometimes no is the best answer for them, because you could ruin someone's life financially, cause divorce and everything if you just more worried about getting the loan than you are worrying about what's best for them.
Yeah. So if somebody's applying for a loan and they're not approved for the loan, sometimes the best answer is no as a banker that you can give them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. And I think one of the things that our bank does really well is spends the time explaining how they can become ready for that loan.
So after collections, where did you go?
Became a loan officer. So started doing consumer lending and doing some real estate lending. Not a lot in commercial yet, but did that for a little while. Realized I didn't like it.
Why didn't you like it?
I don't like to tell people no. You know, that's hard, you know, because they're so excited and different things. So, you know, I didn't, and as being a young lender, most of the people that were coming in for me at the time were people that didn't quite qualify yet.
So I want to talk to a little bit about the difference between a consumer loan and then real estate loan, because a personal loan, a consumer loan, maybe some of our listeners might not know the difference between what a mortgage is or a consumer loan. What is the difference?
A consumer loan would be kind of like an unsecured, like a credit card type loan, a car loan, a boat loan, four-wheeler, motorcycle, that type of lending.
Okay.
When you get a mortgage, that's more of your residence, your residential real estate, buying your first home.
And so when you said you weren't really loving it, saying no to people, was that more the consumer side of things, or was that
more on the consumer side? They were coming in wanting to buy a toy, and they didn't, you know, their debt, they had too much debt at the time, or their credit score was, you know, pretty low and different things. So, and again, you know, that's part of our training too, is like Jill said earlier, we try to educate them, and, you know, sometimes it's hard to educate them after you told them no because they're upset, but you know, that's the best thing you do for them.
Yeah, the best lesson you could have, really.
I don't think that's talked about a lot in banking, is telling people no on the loan side, because everyone just thinks we're giving out loans left and right, and we are essentially, but I think that's probably a hard lesson. Like you said, you had to learn that it's hard to say no to people, and then educating them after the fact as to how we can get you the loan.
Yeah, and the thing that people maybe not understand also is it's not the bank's money.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the owner's money. It's the depositor's money. You know, so people trust us with their deposits and they put them in our bank. We have to make good loans with that money so they, you know, we don't lose our credibility with our depositors because we're giving out bad loans.
Yeah.
So you have to be very responsible with it.
Right. So after consumer lending, did you spend more time in the loan department, or did you venture in a different department? Did you go down to ops at all?
Well, after consumer and residential, I did a little commercial, but then went into marketing. That's when I
I want to know all about this.
Went into marketing. Well, we didn't do much marketing at the time. Well, we did, but it wasn't very beneficial at the time. So
you were in marketing when it was lots of ads and lots of...
Probably no social media, right?
There was no social media
at the
that
time.
hadn't been invented yet. Yeah.
So you were doing billboards maybe? And
we had one billboard that we had and hadn't changed in 10 years. So it wasn't very much. It was more getting into the schools. That's what I did. The football shirts and getting in and helping the schools more than just throwing it in the newspaper or on a billboard.
And I think that's really important work too, getting in the schools and spending time with the students and educating them. And financial literacy is so important, as we talk about all the time, Ashley. Yeah. And we still spend a lot of our marketing time with financial literacy.
It's fun.
Yeah, it really is.
And at that time, the school districts in the area, the state wasn't funding very well. So they were cutting programs and things. So that was our part to be able to keep the schools propped up in the arts, the bands, and the sports.
Mm-hmm. Through sponsorships and whatnot.
There wasn't a lot at the time.
Yeah.
Social media blew all that up, made it easier. It was the other thing with marketing was establishing a standard that we didn't have before on our colors and on our brand and on our logo, and not putting out poor material, not putting out poor looking clothes, or because everyone can throw a logo on something. It's not necessarily the best. So, getting that standard finally established that we have today.
That's good, because we talk about this all the time. It's our marketing. We want it to all have one voice, right? So it all sounds the same. Our social media is the same as what we put on the Facebook or on the newspaper ads or a magazine ad, or even here, it's all the same voice. So we're all being aligned with that. So that kind of laid a good groundwork for where we are now. So thanks, Charlie.
Because at the time, some of our brochures were not custom made; they were just bought, and then they would take a stamp and
Oh my
put Farmer
gosh.
State Bank on the bottom back of them. So, just getting that standard, and everyone realizes that not just the bank employees, but everyone in the community just knows farmers and knows it's this, what standards there are.
Yeah. Being a community supporter for sure is what we're known as. Hopefully I see that through the work that you did. So that's great. After marketing, what came next?
I didn't lose marketing. I kept it, then went down to operations and became an HR director and a bookkeeper, or worked in the bookkeeping department as a assistant chief operations officer. So started doing more accounting again and marketing and taking care of all the HR issues.
So you really have done everything. I didn't realize you had done this much.
Yes, I have. I've done a lot. When I missed the 3 years I was teller as a new account too. We did new accounts too.
Yeah.
Okay.
And HR is not fun either.
I was going to say, I didn't think if you like telling people no to a loan, you probably wouldn't like firing somebody.
And I've had to do it. And it's not fun.
And so throughout this journey, I'm just trying to think of what prompted all of these changes. So what was it, just you had grown as far as you could grow in this position, you were ready for something else? Or what was the driving force of you moving throughout the bank? Or was it did you have a path in mind as you were transferring into the different departments?
Since it's a family bank, I think the path was learning it all so that someone in the family knew how to do it and take care of it. I think that's kind of how the path was for me. I think as we grew as a bank and regulations changed and some of those opportunities came because of that, and there was no one around at the time to step in and do them, so I just did them.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
Can you speak a little bit more to the family dynamics and your wife is how you married into the family, right? So the Franks family owns the bank. So Amanda Franks is.
Yes. So Tom Frank started the bank in '94, the smallest community bank in the country. I don't know if you guys have already discussed all this to the
No, I love to hear it from you.
About it.
Yeah.
So bank started in 1910. Tom bought it in 1994. It was a $3 million bank. So the biggest loan at the time was around $11,000 that they could do, which now you couldn't buy a car for that. Grew it. He's a coal miner. He owned coal mines and got into it just as a something stable for the family to have besides coal mining, because coal mining goes up and down, as we see in the news all the time. So he went from one heavily regulated industry to another extremely heavily regulated industry. So grew it up to about $250 million back in 2005. So yeah, Tom is my father-in-law. And then my brother-in-law, Ryan, he's a vice chairman and active in the insurance and in the bank and other things. He's on the board. So yeah, it's a family deal.
Yeah. The family is very active in the bank. So there's not like a passive position that they hold. All the decisions come from the family. So
we don't have a lot of shareholders. It's all us. So.
Yeah. Which has its advantages, right? So if you need a decision faster, maybe some of those decisions can be made at a more expedited pace.
That is a very big benefit for the bank, not just to make decisions quick, or for loan decisions, but just to make any decisions. Mm-hmm. If we need to punt or move onto something else or make a quick turn, we can do that. We don't have to go through a bunch of committees to figure out what we have to do next. So it's been very beneficial.
Well, and just to get back on more of the family, how has it been for you as being part of the family through your career path? How has it been for you personally? Has it been, it's not always, as I know, it's not always roses, right? Like it's not always an easy thing. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about how that has impacted you.
Oh, it was really easy.
It was.
It made it so much easier to grow. Oh, it was horrible. Coming in as a cost, like I said, coming in with the cost accounting, and being I was referred as the SIL for 10 years, the son-in-law. So, yeah, the journey wasn't very easy. Early on, the men in the bank were very, not intimidated is not the word.
Jealous, maybe.
Yeah, maybe a little jealous, more worried that I was going to cut them out some way. I was coming in to take their jobs and all that kind of stuff, which I wasn't at the time. Some of the older bankers, they were all that way. So, yeah, it was pretty difficult there for a while. But that's what it is. You just got to work through it. Yeah. Made it more fun for me a little.
Yeah.
So.
And I know recently we've had kind of like the culture that we have at Farmers State Bank has not always been the way it is. And I think as you've grown and you've been able to incorporate your leadership skills, and since you have so much relatability, you've been in all these positions, your leadership has enabled a lot of people to grow the culture, right? Like, so the culture has changed as you've grown and changed. So I think it's a good thing. And I think being part of the family has its benefits too, because no one cares more
absolutely
about the bank than you do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as the family part of it, on the family side, that was easy. My father-in-law has always trusted me and believed in me and knew I could do it. But on the other side, it was, people were nervous, but I had good, through the way I had Sharon Gall. She was our cashier at the time. She taught me a lot because she didn't care what anybody thought. Tom Jones was another one at the time. He's been with us a long time. I worked down at Alto for a few months, and he said, "Do you know how to do proof?" And back in the day, proof, you had to encode on the bottom of these checks. You had to type the amount, their account number, all this stuff on these checks in this real loud machine. He goes, "Have you ever done that?" No. He goes, "Well, guess what? You're going to learn that today." So he was good about, doing that. And we had another loan officer named Clark Deacon who retired from us too, and he was very good about bringing me in and training me on the loan side. So I've had good teachers along the way too. They weren't all, but I've had some, and the ones that weren't very nice, they're no longer here. Moved on to different banks.
That's good. What are some other obstacles that you faced throughout your career?
I don't know if I've ever faced really any obstacles. I pretty much just went through it and did it. Some of the obstacles we had through the banking industry were from 2008, some of the downturn and getting slow and different things like that. But any type of serious obstacles we didn't really, I didn't have. We just did it. I just did it.
Yeah.
Just kept running.
It's a good mentality to have. Just do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get distracted by what goes on in politics or the economy or whatever. The job's still got to get done. I mean, there's going to be someone that does it, and there's going to be people that don't. Might as well be the person that does it instead of being the one sitting back and making up excuses, because excuses don't get you anywhere.
Well, I'm dying to get back on this little journey. So you were in HR and marketing. What happened after that?
I guess that'd be my role of starting into the operations part more deeper, understanding all of the balancing, and then starting to understand managing people and culture at that point.
Will you talk a little bit about operations? Because I know before I worked at the bank, I didn't even know that operations was a thing. So explain what operations is to a bank.
Well, it's the background people that people never see. So in our operations, you have people that take care of the app, the mobile app, taking care to make sure everything posts correctly. When you write a check and you drop it off to someone, they send it to their bank. So we have to have someone that collects it through the Federal Reserve to get our money back. So, we have people back there doing that. And then they're balancing to make sure that every deposit gets the account right, every check hits the account right, every loan payment gets corrected or gets on the books right. So you have those.
So you're saying every transaction that I make in my bank account, somebody has eyes on it. Somebody in the background kind of has their eyes and is watching for it.
Yeah, I mean, it's automated with computers, but you have someone making sure that it balances, making sure there's, everything hits right.
So it's a very important department.
It is a very important department. That's what keeps the bank running.
Absolutely. And how long were you in that position with ops?
I think about 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It is. Didn't you enjoy operations?
I did. I enjoyed operations because I got to work with all the employees, not just one branch. Got to get to talk to everybody. And then I was still doing marketing on the side, doing that too. So I got outside the branch too. So I got a little bit of every aspect. And I guess that was part of the time that people were in the communities were getting to know me as part of Farmer State Bank and the family and all that.
What happened after operations?
We had a new CEO come in by the name of Greg Tate. He brought me up as president at that time to get me to he was nearing his retirement when he came on board for us. So his goal was to work 5 years and then me step in and take over as CEO. So I moved out of operations up to the Harrisburg branch at the time, still doing marketing, HR, accounting, CFO work.
So you wore a lot of hats at that point.
You just had a new title. But
Yeah. Yes, had a new title at that point. So I was going to more events, but still doing my everyday job. Yeah, there was a lot. Those 5 years were, I was running pretty hard, but I learned a lot at that point.
What did you feel like in that leadership position and then knowing that you were going to be CEO one day? Were you nervous? Were you excited? Like, what did you feel around that?
At the time, I didn't know that was his goal.
Okay.
It was Greg's goal for me to take his position. Tom and I had not had that conversation yet. So, I was 35. I wasn't even 40 yet, when that came on. So, Tom and I hadn't had that conversation. We had other things going on in the family too that was keeping us busy. So I never really thought about that I was taking his job, but I wanted it for sure. I didn't want someone else to come in and change I didn't want to wait 10 more years,
At that point, when you were president, about to become CEO, what was the culture like at the bank?
It was pretty broken. We'd had 3 CEOs in a 10-year span. So every time you have a CEO, they come in and want to do it their way. So everyone learns again. And then a few more years later, new CEO comes in, got to learn their deal. They bring in people, other people leave, and then another CEO comes in, the same thing. So everybody was tired of constant change. You have constant change,
It's not for the better.
It's not good.
They wanted stability, it sounds like.
They want stability. And they were, at that point, they were craving for some stability.
And I can talk about culture a little bit because even when I started, I think I started in April of 17, and I think it was right before Greg retired and you transitioned to CEO. So it was fun that I got to see just a little bit of that. But yeah, even speaking from that moment to now, things have changed so dramatically. But what do you think really led that? Like, how did it come to be? How did this big culture change? Like, as you took leadership, how did that happen?
Well, how it happened, Tom and Ryan and I got together and said, basically, this isn't fun. And either we need to change what we're doing or we need to get out of banking. And Tom agreed. And at that point, that's when we reached out to Roxanne Emmerich with the Emmerich Group as a consultant for culture. And she put a lot of life into the organization quickly. Yeah, so that was this. You just have that moment of clarity that this has got to change. Can't keep doing it the way we're doing it.
Was the bank profitable? Was it? How did that look? Was it?
Not only on the culture side, but the number side.
Yeah, the bank numbers were dismal. Mm-hmm. It was profitable. We weren't in the red, but it could have been so much better. Mm-hmm. It was just enough to pay the bills and pay the employees and maintain everything, but not real growth, not real something to get excited about, I should say.
Yeah.
So from that point, we blew up pretty fast. Roxanne came in, we did a kickoff, got everybody excited. That's when I was also announced at that time. People didn't know at the time that I was taking on the CEO role. So she announced that at the same time. We all started working really hard and completely changed the culture, changed our income numbers, from making $900,000 a year to making almost $6 million a year.
Wow.
So big change.
When you became CEO, and I imagine I know the answer to this question, but did you see more people coming up to you talking about the culture or addressing it, and you probably felt like you had to not take responsibility for it, but you had to do something about it. Like you knew at that point in that role.
Absolutely. I mean, before I took that role on, it was something that had to be done. You had to get the house in order and get people motivated again and who wants to go to work every day where you spend most of your day at and be miserable and tired?
I like what you say about, you say when you come into the bank every day, you just have to show up and like forget whatever is going on in your life.
Absolutely.
Like every day you always say you walk into the bank and it's just go time.
You have to. I mean, and it's not saying forget what's going on, when you come in. People probably don't know this about me, but at the time when I was taking on the CEO role, my dad was dying, and I was taking care of him on the side, but no one would have known that by coming up to me and knowing, that he was dying at the time. It was just, you do your job, and I did it with love and laughter, and the biggest teacher ever that we have is Jesus Christ. And if everybody would just be more like him, and just love people. You just have to love people. And that's what I try to do, is just love people.
Yeah. I think you should talk about that a little bit more. I always hear you saying it's always about God's divine plan. Like anytime I talk to you about you even meeting Amanda, or just that last year at the big Christmas party, you told the story about how the culture was just crap. And you didn't know where the bank was going. Probably around the time you had the conversation with Tom and Ryan, and you just said that you prayed, like, God, is this it?
Yeah.
What more do you have for us? The
night Roxanne came, I sat on that stage before she came out, and I just prayed for everybody. Make this be the catalyst that changes everything. Because this is going to be my first as CEO here. I'm getting ready to be now CEO, and here we're bringing a culture person in, and the worst thing could have been done is she come in and speak, and everyone sit on their hands and it be miserable, and it was so lively, and everyone loved it and got on board quick. But our family is very we're big believers. We're big we're mission minded. We love people. We want to take care of people. That's one thing that my father-in-law has been very strong at teaching all of us, is to constantly be impactful in people, and it's not just passing money to them. I mean, it's just helping change their lives. So I think when you're in the Word and you're praying a lot, God definitely does step in. And we ended up having a SBA person come on and got us set up for the SBA department. PPP happened, and that had to go through the SBA department. If we wouldn't have been able to help any customers, if that guy hadn't come to us 6 months ahead of time and got it all set up for us, and got us going, we were able to run day one with PPP. That wouldn't have happened. There's things that are getting ready to happen that just the right people have just gravitated, and God has brought those people to us and put them in positions to help better the bank and keep it growing.
Love it.
I do too. I see it happening all the time. And even I know Ashley and my story is similar to that. Like we talked about that a couple episodes ago of how we met and how that came to be, but he's working. Like you can see it in its fruits. I mean, when you talk about numbers, you put God at the center of something and you become fruitful. And I feel like that our bank is a testimony to that. So I love that.
Yeah, if you've not been by, you've been by our banks, but pay attention to the signs. We have scripture on the signs. We have so many people that come in and change their banking for 20 years just because we have scripture on the signs.
People tell me that all the time.
Yeah.
We're the ones that do it, but it's so funny. People come in and just say, I love that Bible verse. So and you hear it from every branch. They tell us that all the time. Someone came in and opened an account today because they like that we put scripture on the board. And I think that speaks volumes in the world that we're living in today, because it's a scary and evil and sad world. And so if we can be a light to people, even in the banking world, it's just amazing to me. And that's probably my favorite part of my job.
That's one of my biggest things I talk about all the time, is make sure we're a light in this dark world. We have to be a light no matter where we are. We have to be a light.
And that's one of the being bold in your faith, being able to put that on the billboard and being able to say that and stand firmly behind it too. Not all companies have the opportunity to do that. So I value that so much, to be able to, be who I am at home, the same person I am when I go to work. So
absolutely,
it's missing a lot of places. So it's something special you've created.
And it also puts a standard for our employees to be more accountable. You know,
Yeah.
we have that on that. You can't, be rude to the person when they come inside after you're telling them Bible
God
scriptures.
loves you.
Yeah. God loves you. Yeah.
But I'm not sure I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So, Charlie, what's one piece of advice that you would give somebody who hopes to be a CEO one day?
I would say, I would tell anybody to put God first, but the biggest thing is you have to have a strong work ethic and strong will. Nothing's guaranteed. Nothing is given to you. That's back to the family thing. People could always said, coming in, oh, he got that because he's the son-in-law. I worked really hard to get to that position and and not just get the position from the family, but also to earn the respect of every employee to go along with it. Because if they don't respect you, you're not going to get anywhere. So, putting in your time, working hard, leaving the baggage. Everyone has baggage. Leaving the baggage at home, or at the door, and just always working on your best self all the time. People probably don't know that I'm an avid reader on personal development, and I like to try to always be a better version of myself at all times.
What's your favorite book you've ever read about leadership?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I have so many that I like different aspects.
Or maybe it doesn't have to be about leadership, but a book that's really shaped you.
Patrick Lencioni's books, some of his books of 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and some of those had some good aspects that have helped me realize that every person has a story, and try to get how to get them
To fit in the puzzle, kind of. Yeah.
I enjoy. That's the big thing I do enjoy is sometimes people come in and they don't maybe work out in that position, but if they're a good person and have the right work ethic, there may be another position you can fit them in. And also knowing how to talk to them, because some people shut down if you're not criticizing, but you're critiquing them in different ways. Some people shut down. So understanding, and I guess it's, how you talk to somebody doesn't follow through with everybody else. So being able to get communication.
Is there anything else you want to share before we sign off? I know we talked about advice you'd give to somebody who wants to become CEO, but anything else you would like to share?
I guess the only thing that I would like to share is, I guess, for everybody, besides what I shared about being your best self, is always being kind. Like I said earlier, just love people. Everyone wants to be loved, so nobody wants to be hated, know? I mean, I guess there could be somebody out there, they be a tad off, but I think everyone wants to be loved, just we need more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm so thankful that you took the time to come on our podcast today, and I'm hoping this is one of many that you'll be on.
Oh, I just had a blast. This was fun.
This is great.
Good.
I learned a lot about you that I didn't know. So
yeah,
I didn't know you had that many jobs in the bank. So
I did.
Maybe I trust your leadership a little bit more than I did.
That's
no,
good.
I'm just kidding.
Well, you definitely inspired me, so that's exciting, Charlie, and I'm so thankful that you took the time to be here. So, well, thanks for listening to another episode of Isn't That Rich? We will see you next time.